All right, I think we're going to get started. It's 1 o'clock. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fintech for Social Good track here at Fintech South. My name is Amanda Estever, and I'm so excited to be here. I head our payments practice at Proficient, and I'm also proudly on the board of NAFLI, which stands for National Alliance for Financial Literacy and Inclusion. You know, Atlanta has been giving me the warmest welcome, so I'm really excited to be here, especially as a first-timer. All right, and hopefully you guys will bring the energy in the room. All right. I'd like to talk a little bit about financial inclusion, right? When we think about financial inclusion, we're driving social good, and it's easy to think of your local community bankers and programs. But let's be clear, financial institutions are some of the most powerful change makers in this work. The choices they make around access, the products that they build, and partnerships can directly shape whether people are excluded or empowered. And when paired with fintech innovation, that impact can scale in extraordinary ways. I know this because I've spent my career in the heart of the systems that shape people's financial lives. From banks and payment networks to fintech innovators, I've seen the incredible potential these institutions have to open doors. But I've also seen the many gaps that also excludes communities as well. So for me, this work is deeply personal, as I've seen firsthand how the right product or policy can change one's trajectory. You know, I believe in access to fair, transparent, and empowering financial tools shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a given. It's why I love the work I do in payments, why I serve on the board of NAFLI, and why I've gladly accepted the role of being your facilitator for this powerful track. So today, I want us to flip the script. What happens when we challenge employers, financial institutions, and the fintech innovators, the true system builders, to see themselves not just as service providers, but as architects of opportunity, agents of equity, and accelerators of change? So with an evolving economy and transformation in technology, this is now the time to engage in these conversations and explore why social good matters and assess how and, of course, plan for what's next. So if you're fired up like I am, because I am, join me as I welcome leaders who are proving profitability and purpose aren't opposites, but partners in driving impact. All right, so that was a long one. But join me in welcoming a few of these leaders. And I'd like to start off our first session with a thought, right? Imagine a financial ecosystem that is not only user-centric, but fair and provides the consumer with financial well-being. This is the world I hope to operate in and would like to present our first speaker, Delicia Hand, who will walk us through our first title session, The Human-Centered Design in Fintech, a framework for digital finance. Delicia?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I wanted to start us off and build on Amanda's question. And this is really centered around our work at Consumer Reports. So if we were to build a consumer finance app, how do you build it so that consumers love it? They recommend it to their friends, their families, their neighbors, versus something that consumers use from a utility standpoint. You need it, everybody needs a bank account, you need to move money, right? What's the difference between the two? So, tell you a little bit about Consumer Reports and how we're thinking about these questions. My name's Delicia Hand, and I spent a decade as a regulator. I worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, helped to start the agency, and as I was wrapping up and going to Consumer Reports, I really thought there was a missed opportunity at the CFPB to really be more involved in the innovation space, to partner with fintechs and others in digital finance to ensure that innovation and consumer protection were mutually reinforcing. Naturally, because of the regulated entity relationships, even though we had a lot of engagement with regulated entities, it's not like folks were coming in and showing us like specs on things. And so that was one of the things, just there's a barrier by means of the relationship. So I sort of took this question over to Consumer Reports and started to dig a little deeper. Now, you might know CR, or Consumer Reports, as the organizations that test your washing machine or, your cars and things like that. And we've done that for 98 years, so we're almost coming up on a century. But I've helped to evolve that, and we now have full digital marketplace testing programs that test connected devices, apps, services. And so coming from the Bureau for almost 4 years, we've been testing digital finance apps. We started with building a framework, so what do you test? You can't exactly press a gas pedal like you would on a car, but what would that equivalent gas pedal look like on your payment app, your Venmo, PayPal, et cetera? So we started along the lines of building something called a fair digital finance framework for evaluating fintech products and services. And the vision behind this is really to promote consumer-centric innovation and to focus on outcomes. So not just ensuring that digital finance products are meeting regulatory checkboxes, but what do consumers get out of it at the end of the day? So I'm here to talk about a playbook that we're publishing this fall, and talk a little bit about our process. So it's mostly software-based. We download the apps, we go through the consumer onboarding, we do user experience, user interface, we look at data flows, all of those things, and we examine along 6 principles. The principles, which we'll get into more, are half regulatory, and then the others are outcome-based principles. So we do look to see how companies stack up next to regulatory principles. But we also want to look at things that consumers care about. Will this product, even though it advertises that, actually improve my financial well-being? Will this make me more secure? What are the features that do that? How do the products distinguish themselves? And then we engage with the companies. So before we go to press, so to speak, the 4th part of our methodology is actually meeting with the companies, sharing our data, and working with them to optimize or improve things where we see those things. And then we also want to create or facilitate a race to the top. So we do the ratings the same way that you might see a rating for cars and things like that. So I just talked a little bit about our process. So over the last few years, we've evaluated payments products, your basic banking apps, short-term liquidity products such as buy now, pay later, remittances. Coming up, we're going to be looking at investment products, crypto, purchase and engagement platforms, among other types of digital finance products. And in the first 3 years, we're able to share the data and the findings and work with companies largely behind the scenes to move things. But we kept getting the same question. So, okay, we understand the opportunity to improve, but what are we improving towards? What are the concrete design recommendations and principles that you think we should be shifting from and to? And so this playbook is really centered in doing that, having more concrete design-centered recommendations, hence the moniker fairness by design. Because one of the things that we saw consistently is that, the regulatory stuff doesn't fit neatly into your 3.5 inch mobile screen. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of missed opportunities for companies to really think at the design phase how to optimize, right? So instead, you see things that don't really work for consumers, like privacy policies and practices, right, that reflect 13 different statewide approaches, which we get that, right? You've got to ensure that you're compliant in the states in which you operate. But from a consumer standpoint, that's not really meaningful, right? That doesn't translate to the best experience. So those are some of the things that we get into in the playbook. So what are the principles by which we examine and evaluate products? Safety, privacy, transparency, user centricity, support for financial well-being, and inclusivity. It's organized, goes from principles to then specific criteria to then actionable product attributes, right? So it's very detailed. And then we have procedures to execute, right? So our data scientists and others on the team, our user research folks, they go through hundreds of different procedures when they go through the apps. And these are some of the things that we look for, more kind of like at a criteria perspective, under safety, fund protection, good security practices, privacy, data minimization, et cetera. So we're moving from just collecting data to specific concrete recommendations. How do you move from innovation that does more than check the boxes, innovation that actually improves the consumer welfare and positively impacts consumers? And we would love to work with you. So we're rolling this out. We've already been working with the companies that we've evaluated, but we'd love to go further downstream and work directly with some of the fintech providers who are working with banks or major providers and things like that. And we field tested this. So we already do this as an organization with other industries. The last couple of years, for example, we've worked with Samsung and others in the communication sector to provide similar engagement, and would love to do this in the fintech space. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much, All right. Thank you so much, Delicia. That was wonderful. I believe we do have a slide for folks to stay engaged with the Consumer Reports organization. Why don't you guys go ahead and take a quick picture? That'll give you access to be able to fill out the form and be part of this community. I really love the showcase, especially around the playbook, because it reminds us that fairness by design should be part of the original product building, right, steps. So really excited for this one. All right, let's keep going.